Okay, good evening again, everyone. So my name is Adedoyin Jaiyesimi for those of you who may not know. And I'm the co-founder of the Comms Avenue. And today I'm just going to be sharing on navigating your early years in comms. I hope and I believe that you've watched the video and downloaded the career guide. And if you haven't done so, that's okay. You can do that afterwards, but I just really wanted to answer the questions because I first put out the survey and there were a lot of questions that came out of the survey. And I couldn't answer everything in the video, otherwise that video would have been 3 hours long. So I thought, okay, you know what, do the video, do the career guide, and then have this session where I'm able to take questions from people. So please, if you have questions, you can raise your hand or you can also type it in the chat. But I'm also going to start talking through some of the questions and the themes that came out from the survey that I did. But as always, I love to tell stories. So I'm going to start with a story of my first job, which was an internship. And I was a staff writer on that job. And for those of you that may have read my book, you would know this story. And I got into that job very cluelessly. I mean, I knew I could write, but I didn't realize how different it would be to write commercially. And for about 3-4 weeks and almost a month, all I was doing was reading magazine articles and writing pieces that ended up in draft. It never got published. And it was so, what's the word? Like, I felt really sad because, you know, I'll come, I'm like, today is the day I'm going to get published. And I'm like, no, you're not there yet. And I would just have this very sinking feeling. And, you know, eventually when I finally got published, to see my byline, I was so super excited. But the thing is, the me that came into that organization and me that eventually got a byline were worlds apart because I had learned on the job. I had read through so many articles. I had made mistakes. And even when I started getting published, there were times that I will publish something and I'll get a call from my boss, take it down. The publication at the time dealt with celebrities. There was one particular celebrity. Till today, I still have PTSD when I see her. I had misspelled her name in the title of the piece. And you know WordPress, once you put the title, that title is going to be the URL, the slug of that piece. So when I got calls from her, when my colleagues told me that, oh, you made a mistake, you need to correct this. So I went and immediately I corrected the headline. And then this lady calls me personally, insults my life. Oh my God, I don't know if I've been that insulted before. And, you know, she's like, no, you have not, you haven't corrected it. She was very condescending. And I kept looking at but I'm looking at the screen. This thing has been corrected. Apparently, she was referring to the URL, which still had the mistake. And I had no idea that I could edit a URL. Why am I telling you this story? Mistakes on the job are very, especially when you're first starting out. There was a question that somebody asked me, must I always make mistakes? How would you grow if you don't make mistakes? I don't know that there's anybody that is perfect. Even me now, over 10 years in this career, I still make mistakes. Obviously not the same mistakes I made in the early years, but there are mistakes. But I've also learned to have a healthy attitude to my mistakes. So when that episode happened with that celebrity, I, first of all, double check the spellings of celebrity names. And that's why till today, I'm very finicky about the spelling of people's names. I would make sure I double check just because of that experience. So mistakes and experiences like that, they help you to do better. And that's what I've learned. So I started with that story. And I want to ask you, what are the challenges that you're having right now navigating your early years in comms? Because again, like I said, this is an interactive session. So please feel free to post it in the comments. If you want to speak, please raise your hand. Like I said before, I called some questions from the survey. So maybe I would also start with that to give you time to type your questions or raise your hand. Okay, so I'm looking for the document. Here we are. Okay, so one of the questions that came out a lot was understanding how to map your career in communications. There are different roles. What should you aspire to? And this is what I would say as an answer to that question. Everybody's path is very, very different. There's so many paths into communications, and there's so many things that you can do in this field. And it's getting bigger and bigger and wider. So there's some people that they specialize in social media. And from social media, they find, oh, I like digital marketing. And then from there, they go to product management or product marketing. And then you have the corporate communications guys, the guys that are like, look, I just want to sit in an organization. And so they work in corporate comms, or they focus on internal comms. And internal comms is you're dealing with communications, but you're focused on the internal stakeholders, major one of which is the employees, while corporate communications is usually external facing. So you're dealing with your target audience, you're dealing with other stakeholders that are not the employees. Or you can decide, you know what, I don't want to restrict myself to one industry. I like the upbeat pace of working in an agency. And then you have the option of being a copywriter. You can be an account manager. You can decide, okay, I want to become an account director. There's so many paths to communications. However, when you're beginning your career, I always advise explore, because the beauty about communications is that once you have mastered the basic skills, it's very easy for you to navigate and move to new industries or try new things. And for me, early on in my career, I tried so many things. I'm not very adventurous actually in person, but with my career, I have been very adventurous. I have done work with mining industry, real estate, finance, fashion, government, a lot of industries. I've tried my hands on social media, freelance writing, ghost writing. What else have I done? Core communications, consulting, which is what I'm doing now. And the basic thing I would want you to think about honing, first of all, is your writing skills. Whether you're 1 year or 50 years, your writing skills are going to be very, very, very important. So if you've seen the career guide, I've put there resources to help you hone your writing skills. Work on your writing skills. Also work on your ability to create strategy, because the way communications is going, you need to be very, very strategic in what you're doing. Now, I'm going to do a course on communication strategy, because that was something that a lot of you asked questions on. And that would require a full-blown course, which I would release, fingers crossed, this month. But in terms of thinking strategically, and this is what I mean. So let's say you're working with an organization now, and yes, you may just be starting out in your career, but you need to be asking yourself, this company, why is this company in business? So let's say the organization, let me use a random industry. Let's say the organization is into manufacturing, let's say FMCG, and they have consumer goods. This organization, what is their goal? Why are they in business? You must understand the business of that organization. You must understand the industry. Who are the key players? By the time you look at it, depending on the country you're in, you're most likely to say, okay, Unilever, for example, is a big competitor for this organization. This organization, in terms of positioning, is number what? How can this organization, let's say the organization is number 10, what needs to happen for this organization to move from 10 to 1? When you begin to ask those questions, your mind begins to open, so that the things that you're doing, you're thinking about it in the context of what this organization wants to achieve. And I always tell everybody that at the beginning of the year, when you start out in your organization, they're going to tell you, oh, this is our focus for 2022. We want to expand into East Africa. We want to expand into Europe. So you need to be thinking, this work that I am doing, how does it help my organization to achieve this goal of getting into East Africa? So you're going to be looking for features and placements in East Africa, for example, in terms of communications. You're trying to do thought leadership on some platforms that helps your senior executives to talk about what they do. You're going to try and create content. You do your research. What do East Africans like? You're going to get those insights. So that's what I mean by strategic communications. Like I said, I will do a proper course on that, but you need to be able to think strategically in the work that you do. So your writing skills, your strategic skills are going to be very, very, very important. And if I'm going to add a third point is your creativity, because comms PR is something that everybody thinks that they can do, but not everybody can actually do it. So how do you hone your creativity? For me personally, I try to consume things. So when I'm going around in my neighborhood or I'm traveling, I'm consuming creative content. I'm engaging with it. Oh, this campaign is very nice. Why did they do this? Why did they choose that? Oh, a recent conversation going on in Nigeria now is about the launch of Fenty Beauty and how beauty influencers were not invited into the conversation or into the launch. So I'm like, if I were this company, what would I have done differently? Because I begin to engage my mind creatively when I do that. So those are the three things that I would say that early on in your career, you need to begin to map out. The second thing I would advise you to do as you're starting out, so let's say you're starting out as a corporate communications officer or maybe even an intern, start exploring what the possibilities are. Would you one day like to become a corporate communications manager? Would you one day like to become the PR manager? Or would you one day like to become the chief communications officer? And then go on LinkedIn and go and look for people that have this title that you have. And the reason why I ask you to do this is you're going to be able to see their career trajectory, two, the skills that they have that you do not yet have, and three, things like certifications that you may need. I did this exercise in 2017. I was running my communications agency at the time. It was 2017. And I knew that I wanted to change. I don't want to call it a love. I have an interesting relationship with 9-to-5s. Even before COVID and remote working, I've never been the sit in the office type of person. In 9-to-5s that I've had, it has always been flexible. So at the time I was contemplating to myself, should I go back into 9-to-5? Because running an agency has its own challenges. And I started to ask myself, okay, if I want to go into a 9-to-5, what kind of role do I want? And I knew that I wanted a very, very senior executive role as a communications director. At the time, by the time I did the LinkedIn audit, first of all, I didn't have the number of years of experience. Two, I realized that a common thread in the profiles and the job description. So two things you will look at on LinkedIn is people that already occupy that position, and then job descriptions or job openings rather with that, with where you want to go. So by the time I checked the job openings for communications director, I realized all of them needed some sort of education in either public relations or communications, which I didn't have at the time. I studied law. So priority on my list was then I needed to get a master's. Before this, nobody had asked me for my education because that's a question that a lot of you have asked. Do I need to get a master's? What certifications do I need to get? I didn't have any professional certification in communications up until 2021 was when I got my first professional qualification, because the truth is, a lot of it is the results that you can deliver. There are people now that they already have the certificates, but they don't have the experience and they're struggling. So it's to find the balance. So when I realized that a lot of those, in fact, it was all of them, to be very honest, needed that at the very least, I put it on my goal. I needed to go and get a master's. And I've already gotten the master's in communications now. The next thing I realized was, oh, these people belong to some sort of professional association where they have the opportunities to do some thought leadership, they can speak, they're on panels and stuff. And so I started researching the IABC, the International Association of Business Communicators, and the details of these associations are in the career guide. If you haven't yet downloaded it, I will share the link where you can see the career guide and the video. And then I saw the CIPR. Now, interestingly, the thing with the Chartered Institute of Public Relations is that when I was doing my master's, part of the materials that we had to study were like guides and handbooks from the CIPR, and they were so useful and practical. But the thing with these associations, if for any of you that have checked, they cost a lot of money. Even I'm like, okay, I did the IABC, I would like to do the CIPR, but I can't do both at the same time now. In the early stages of your career, the price may be a bit much. It's quite high, and it's something I'm trying to engage them on to see how, especially for those of us in Africa, because by the time you convert, their fees are usually in dollars and pounds. By the time you convert it to your currency, you're just seeing the zeros and you're like, this is 5 or 6 times my salary. But I realized that I needed to be part of an association. So I joined the IABC. And then I also realized that they were also thought leaders in their field. And that has helped to shape, where I am now. And when I realized that, okay, maybe 9 to 5 is not what I want to do, but I want to be a communications advisor, what does it take for me to do that? And I built towards it. So the point is, build towards where you would like to go, but bear in mind that where you want to go can shift. So in 2018, my eye was on, okay, maybe be a communications director in a big organization. Right now, I'm like, I don't really want that. I want to be a communications advisor because I want to be able to, I like the flexibility of working with different organizations from different industries. That keeps me alive. It may be different for you. So find out what it is that you want, first of all, and then pursue that. So don't, how will I put it? Have an idea, but don't be stuck on, oh, I need to be 100% certain. I don't know that anybody can be 100% certain. Maybe there are a few people, but if you're not 100% certain, it's not the end of the world. But what I would like you to do is be able to know the direction in which you are going. Next year, I might change my mind and be like, okay, I don't want to be a communications advisor anymore. These people are showing me pepper. They're not paying my money. I want to do something else. And that's perfectly okay. And then I'll begin to build again. Where would I like to go? What would be required for me to get there? So I hope that answers that question. Let me check the chat. Okay, guys, nobody's asking a question. Interesting. I did this specially to be able to take your questions. Please, if you have a question, yes, thank you, Sarah. Do you want to speak or do you want to type? Which one? Okay, I guess Sarah is typing. Let me wait for you to type, then I will take the next question on my list from the survey. And the next one is on deepening your expertise. Does anybody else have a question as well? Please feel free to type, feel free to raise your hand, and then I will be able to answer it. Okay, while Sarah is typing, let me go to the next question on the list, which is on deepening your expertise. So a lot of times in comms, you're going to be thrown into the deep water. There's no way around it. When I talk to people about this, they always like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. My boss just asked me to do this. I've never done this before. It's part of the game. Just expect it. But what I would like you to do is have a mindset of, no matter what is thrown at me, I can find this information. And that's the mindset I have. There's nothing that I cannot know. And if you belong to the Comms Avenue community, first of all, you already have a community where you can even ask questions. But even outside of the Comms Avenue community, when I'm given a task that I have absolutely no idea what it's about, my first thing, I go on Google and then I don't care who that person is, I find somebody who is an expert in that thing and I take the person out for lunch, or if I don't have that time, can I call you? I have a project, and I ask all of the questions that I want to ask the person. So don't be afraid to ask questions is the point that I'm making. You're not going to know everything. Even as I am now, there's still things that come up and I have to call my colleague. Like, I have this brief that requires X, Y, Z. I'm not very sure. Can you point me in the right direction? Please be able to ask questions. Even ask questions of your bosses. I know that certain organizations and certain terrains, it feels like when you ask questions, they're angry, they're agitated. It's okay. Still ask the question. I rather ask the question and let the person shout on me than not ask the question. So anybody that has worked with me knows that I will ask you questions. And I always advise people, ask questions. You're not going to be able to know everything. And one of the things about deepening your expertise is being able to know when you do not know and finding the knowledge and information that helps you to know. The second thing is learning from others. I learn from others a lot. Those ahead of me, my peers, and those coming, I don't want to say behind, but my junior colleagues. because you have to learn every day. Things are changing so much and so quickly in comms and PR that you must be able to learn from other people. Sometimes I have like 1 hour conversations with people and I'm just listening to them talk about their job. I had a friend a few years ago, she was working with an organization that was always in crisis. And I had never done crisis management before, but I would just let her talk about the work that she was doing in terms of managing crisis. And I was learning from those things. I'd never handled crisis communication before, but this organization was always in crisis. So I would ask her questions. Okay, so what do you now do when this doesn't? So how did you handle this? And that helped me almost like 2 years later when I had to then do a crisis communication strategy for another client I was working with. Just being able to ask her question and probe further. So this thing about asking questions and just your colleagues, just even finding out what are you people doing, what campaign are you working on, you just never know when it can become useful for you. So I'm seeing that the questions are dropping. So let me finish these questions on deepening your expertise. Then you read books and watch videos. In the career guide, I have put books there. I was preparing for the communication strategy course today. I already know it, but you see, I'm not going to assume that I know everything. So I was already going and doing research on, okay, what else, what unique perspectives are there? And I've seen some books. I'm like, oh, this is very interesting. If I can afford to buy the books, I will buy it. If not, I will just do a glimpse and say, oh, okay, maybe I'll add it to my list to buy later on. And then implement what you learn. So a thing about communications is it's the practical experience. You can have head knowledge, but you see, if you have not implemented it, it's two different things. So the example that I gave, my friend that was telling me all about, crisis comms and all of that, I knew it theoretically, but I had never implemented it. And then by the time I had an opportunity to implement, we then realized, okay, this is not this easy. Oh, this is, the consideration. So find ways to implement what you are learning. And it doesn't always have to be only your organization. Let me just put that out there. I always advocate volunteering because that helps you to build on the skills that you're not so confident in. So if, for example, you know that your writing skills, you need to work on it, go and volunteer with, an NGO that won't take up so much of your time and say, look, I'm going to be writing your press releases. I'm going to be writing your blog posts. Because the more you do anything, consistency, there's growth and there's results. And so you begin to build that skill because you're writing more and you're learning more, which then indirectly impacts the work that you're doing in your organization. So as you are learning new things, find ways to implement it. And if your organization does not give you a chance to implement, I have been very fortunate in my career that I've worked with people that have allowed me to implement and experiment. I mean, if you've read my book, when I was working in a faith-based organization, the senior pastor, he would just wake up one morning, I will have tried something. Oh, okay, this is what we're doing today. Sometimes it flops, sometimes it doesn't work. Not everybody has that opportunity. I do get that. So if your organization doesn't give that opportunity to experiment and implement what you've learned, find it. I'm so big on creating the growth that you want, because your growth is your responsibility, not your organization, to be very honest. And then gain mastery. I was talking to someone that I really respect in the industry, and he was just saying that, consistency brings growth and it brings mastery. So the more you do this thing, the better you become. When I read some of the things that I wrote 12 years ago, I was like, did I really write these things? That's because I've grown. I've written so many things I've lost count. I've done so many communication strategies I did in the beginning of my career that I was like, is this really a strategy? Did I really do this? But I didn't stop there. I had to push myself. It's a comm strategy that the client sent back and was not impressed with. And I had to push myself to be better. Now I'm much better at communication strategy. Am I the best? I don't think so, because there's always things to improve, but I'm much, much better. So gain mastery. There is a resource on the Comms Avenue website. I'll try and find the link, which one of our mentoring program mentors, she broke down the competencies. There are things where it's important for you to have an understanding of, and there are areas where you need to gain mastery. And she broke down the different competencies, and that resource is very, very great. I'll try and post it before the end of this webinar, so that you can see the areas where you need to build mastery. You can't learn everything. Let's be very honest with ourselves. Or you can't be a master in everything because comms is broad. But you need to know what is important for where you're going. For me, it is my strategic skills, right? I've moved from the tactical side of things. In the early years of your career, you're going to do a lot of tactical things, implementing social media, media relations, all of those kind of strategies. You're going to be doing the tactical stuff. But the higher you go, the more strategic your work has to become, because then the organization wants to see that your work is impacting on organizational objectives. But like I said before, right from the beginning of your career, begin to hone those strategic skills, which will become much more important later on. So you need to know what skills are going to be very important. So for me, my strategic skills are very, very important. My public speaking skills, because now I'm doing a lot of speaking and training, and I had to train myself in public speaking. This is not something that comes naturally to me. Trust me, I had to train myself, practice, go over sessions, see my mistakes and all of that. And then the last part is develop creative ideas. So sometimes, I think, how else could I have done this campaign that this brand has done? How else could I communicate this company or service to this company's stakeholder? I mean, they don't know me, they may never know, but again, it's just me stretching myself. So let me go to the questions. Let me go right to the top. Okay. Jennifer says, what are some of the techniques to deliver good and convincing pitches? Now, pitches have two elements of it. There is the document in itself, right, that you have. And one of the first things that I would say when you want to work on a pitch, you're building the document, is what is the problem that this company has? Because they're coming to you because there is a problem or there's something that they want to achieve. They want to have brand awareness, for example, or they want to position themselves as industry leaders. So first of all, ask yourself, what is this organization trying to achieve? Then ask yourself, what are the other people in the ecosystem? What are they doing? So you're taking me into my communication strategy course, but I'll just give a brief. So what are they doing? Where can this organization or this brand, operate in a way that it will be unique and it will bring them the goals that they want to achieve? And that's where your ideas begin to come, which you would then put in the pitch. Now, the document itself is one thing. So I always say, let your pitch be very beautiful. So for those of you that have watched my videos, I take a lot of time to do my presentation slides, because sometimes, and you may think it may not make sense, but you see, a badly done pitch deck, there's just a perception that, this person does not know what they're doing. I don't know why. But when your pitch deck is appealing to the eye, it draws them in. They're like, okay, let's continue to see. So that's a barrier that you want to take out. Design your pitch deck, your ideas. Then the second thing with pitches now is, how do you then convince the client in person that this idea that you have will work and your organization or your team is who they should go with? And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. That's where your understanding of the organization comes in. And dare I say, your research of the people within that organization is very important. So for me, in the times I have done pitches, I will research that organization, research the work that they have done, see the gaps. So for example, I'm working on a, it's not a pitch, but a company has engaged me, and I've already spotted a gap from what they said they are on their website to what they're actually doing. So I'm like, guys, you're not owning this space, and it's a space that nobody is actually owning in Nigeria. Well, you're already saying that you own this space in your company documents, but in reality, you're not even owning that space. If you own that space, this is what it's going to do for you, and you achieve that. And you then articulate that in your pitches, because what people want to know is that you are competent, you can deliver on the objectives, and they can work with you easily. So in your pitch, you must be able to have a good rapport with the organization, the executives in the organization. So do your research on them. What are they like? Are they the strict type? Are they the jovial type? What are they looking out for? What have they tried before? And then, be confident in your presentation and how you're speaking. Imagine if you have a great pitch deck, great ideas, and you're going there and saying, actually, so, okay, so this is why you should go with us. Yeah, you should go with us because, this idea is they're going to look at you like you don't know what you're saying, but your idea is absolutely fantastic. So in a nutshell, Jennifer, it's those two things: the document in itself, the ideas it contains, the aesthetics of that document. And the second part is how you present those ideas in a way that resonates with what the client wants. Because sometimes we do pitches with what we want. You need to speak the client's language, and then, you begin to connect with them. Hope that answered your question. Can you talk to us this question, Sarah, about comms for Gen Zs? We grew up in the industry and mainly only digital marketing. How do we get traditional media and how it works? Okay, so traditional media is not hard. You asked the question and we wondering if they had. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. And the first thing I would say about traditional media is that it's based on, I'm mindful of the fact that we have people from different countries on this call. So the context of this answer that I'm giving now is Nigeria. Traditional media, the way it was done is you get a journalist, you reach out to the journalist, pitch the journalist story sometimes, or more often than not, you pay the journalist and the journalist publishes your story. It comes out on a certain date, or you want to feature in a radio show, for example, you reach out to the radio host, they give you their rate cards. Ideally, you're meant to be pitching for these things, but in a lot of African countries, it doesn't work like that. And then, you get the feature. Now, what digital media has done is it has bypassed a lot of these things. So you have blogs where you can easily send them your content, send them your press releases, and they post it without having to wait for the newspaper or without having to deal with the journalist. Now, the thing about traditional media is that you need to think about the audience. For any brand that their audience is Gen Z and some part of millennials, because the millennial age range is actually broad, digital is the way to go. However, if you have a target audience, you're a mass market brand, for example, and the average, I don't want to say average, let me say average income person is your target audience, then you need traditional media. Why? Because they are not on social media. They are not reading blogs. What are they listening to? They're listening to radio. They are on buses, consuming above the line materials. They are watching TV and they are reading newspapers. So using traditional media is then saying, how do I get my message to my audience? So I want you to think about it like that. Let's remove the distinction between traditional and digital. What medium gets me to my target audience? If, for example, I have a brand that's coming to me and they want to reach out to women in the market, I'm not going to tell them to do blogs. I'm not going to tell them to do that. What I'm going to tell them, I'm not even going to tell them to go into newspapers. I'm going to tell them to do radios, and I'm going to tell them to do activations within the major markets in, let's use Lagos, for example, because that is where the target audience is. Now, there are some groups of people. So if you're reaching like businessmen, for example, you're reaching certain HNIs, some business publications, e.g. Business Day, Guardian, it's important for your content to be visible in those places because of the target audience that you are trying to reach. So because organizations, you don't have a lot of media spend, you have to think strategically about where is the best place for my organization to be. Now, you will find some organizations that their audience is online, but they also want to be on TV, on the radio, on billboard for brand awareness, because they want people to know that this brand exists. So the question you should be asking yourself is, what helps me to pass my message to the target audience entirely? And if it's traditional media, you need to find the journalists. So those are the gatekeepers of traditional media, the journalists, the radio show host, the TV show host. So for example, you want to get on TV, you need to be getting in touch with the interviews. Now, I don't know how it operates in like other countries, but in Nigeria, if you want to go on TVC, for example, if you decide, oh, let me shoot them an email, you may wait there for days. It's better for you to know the show know the host of the show, reach out to the host of that show, and then pitch your client to that person. Sarah, I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, I will go further. I'm just mindful of time and the questions that I have lined up. Okay, so there's a question, what is the most sought after skill needed in comms today? Honestly, I would say strategy. I would say strategy because more than ever now, organizations are very, very conscious about the returns that communication is bringing. Now, some of you, in fact, it was on Sunday, somebody was saying, I think, Jennifer, I'm not sure if that was you, that sales has been added to the role. And that's very unfortunate because your job as a communicator is not sales, but organizations are beginning to do that because they want to see some sort of return on investment on the work that you're doing. However, if you're someone that you're able to think strategically and come up with strategic ideas, tactics, you are able to show return on objectives, which is different from return on investment, quote and unquote, because you're not a sales function. We're not a function to bring in money, but we bring in value that aligns with the objective of the organization. And that's strategy. And how do you cultivate this skill? Like I said before, it requires you to have an understanding of your organization. You need to have an understanding of business. You need to have an understanding. If you don't even work in a business, if you work in a nonprofit, for example, or you're working in government, you need to just have an understanding of that institution, what works, do research. I always advise, go on Deloitte, PwC, what's the other one? Ernst & Young. They have insights on so many industries. That gives you an understanding so that when you're developing your strategies and ideas, you're not telling them to do campaigns that will give them social media followers. You're beginning to come up with ideas that allows your organization to have share of voice, to have visibility where conversations are being happening within the industry. But you cannot do that if you don't have an understanding of the industry. Strategy. Very, very important. And if I'm going to add a second one, I would say persuasion, because a lot of you would have this experience of bosses and clients thinking that they know your job better than you. They're like, no, this is what I want. They're like, but I'm the comms person. I am the one with the skill. And they're trying to tell you what to do. How do you persuade them to come in the direction that you know is the correct direction? And that's a skill to have without being forceful, without being rude. You must learn the art of persuasion. It's something that I've developed over time. In fact, it's one thing, a recent client, we're doing audience mapping, and the client goes, no, Adedoyin, we don't have primary audience. We want to attract everybody. I was like, you cannot attract everybody, because if you're attracting everybody, you're attracting nobody. And it was a heated 1 hour conversation. I kid you not, guys. And the client was very adamant. But at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? Let's do it like this. We're going to have a primary audience target. Then we are going to have 3 classes of secondary audience, because what they were doing, it was very important. There is no brand that can speak to everybody. Even Coca-Cola that everybody drinks, they have their primary target audience, but you have the secondary audience that then come on board, So eventually I was able to persuade that client with that solution. So your persuasion skills and your ability to think on your feet, because sometimes organizations ask for the most ridiculous things, and you must be able to say, this is a preferred solution, or this is a better way. And that also comes with confidence in your ability. If you're not confident in what you're doing, you're not going to be able to do that. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, how do you handle clients who do not understand it? The worst, Abel, they're the worst. They don't understand the difference between PR and marketing. Honestly, what I have started to do is I first of all try to educate them, right? Now, those of them that are adamant and they do not want to listen, and this is a personal thing, I walk away. And if they have paid me, I return their money. Why? Because it's going to cause me such headache to work with somebody that doesn't even understand what I am doing. Because if someone doesn't understand the difference between PR and marketing, they're going to be benchmarking my results based on marketing objectives. And you know that that's never going to work. So I would try, my first instinct, when, for example, I'm doing my pitch, I always state it clearly. These are the deliverables. These are the outcomes. I am not bringing you sales, and this is what I'm going to do from your brand. And if you're insistent on bringing marketing objectives, I'm not going to sign with you. And then if I've signed with you and then in the middle, I just be like, I cannot continue. It's a me thing. I walk away from such clients because it's going to be such a pain and you're not going to enjoy it. So, but I always try, what I've started to do is at the very beginning, I'm very, very clear in the contracts. I do a scope of work contract that breaks down what I am going to do, what I am going to deliver, and the outcomes, so that we are very clear in the very beginning. So that when you start asking me things that are not there, I will refer you. Remember in the documents that we signed, in the scope of work document and in the contract, this is what is stated and this is not included. If you want to do this, you will need to engage a marketer, a digital marketer, an influencer, whatever it is that they're asking that is not covered in that brief. That really I found helps me not to go off tangent and to deal with difficult clients. The second one is, how do you handle clients who insist that you go with their ideas, even though it's not going to achieve the desired result? I recently experienced this, and it's tough, to be very honest. And it's very painful when you can see that this what this client wants to do, they're going to crash and burn. And sometimes you just have to go with what they're saying. Now, the downside of it is, by the time it all unravels, the blame still comes on you. But Adedoyin, I make sure that I state my point and I tell them, this direction that you want us to go, these are the possible outcomes that will come of it, this direction. And I'm going to make sure it's documented. It will not even be a conversation. So that when the thing goes haywire, I'll say, but I said it in the email of June 16, 2022, that this is what is going to happen. But yeah, it's tough. It's honestly tough. Sometimes you will have to concede. Sometimes I've had to go loggerhead with them and say, guys, this is not going to work, especially when it's going to be very costly. Because again, my name and my integrity is attached. So, I can't do something that at the end of the day, it rubs off badly on me. So remember when I spoke about persuasion skills, I have also learned about the middle ground. So a lot of times with my clients, I will say, okay, where is the middle ground? Can we find a middle ground? This is what you want to do. This is what I believe you should do. Can we meet in the middle? And if you hone your persuasive skill, you're able to get them to move to that middle. At least once I'm able to get them to move to that middle, it becomes easy for me. So, learning to do that helps. But the ones that are really, really adamant, Abel, I walk away, I'm never gonna lie. Like this point in my career, I don't like stress. So anyone that is gonna stress me out, I'm like, perhaps let me recommend someone that can deliver on this, but I know not everybody can do that, but it's just me personally. What exactly is the difference between communication strategy and tactics? Okay, so let me explain it. When I do the communication strategy course, you'll be able to see the differences, but let me give you an example. Let me use a brand. Let's use Coca-Cola, for example. Let's say Coca-Cola doesn't have visibility at all in Africa. Let's say they're moving into Africa for the first time. Now, their strategy, the overall strategy will be the question of how do we achieve our objective of having our footprints in Africa, starting with, let's say they want to start with West Africa. So the strategy can then be, okay, what we're going to do is that we're going to look for event partners, right? Or we're going to look for outlets that would visibly promote the Coca-Cola brand. So our strategy is that everywhere you go, you're going to see Coca-Cola. That's our strategy. We want you to be bombarded with messaging from Coca-Cola, everywhere. The tactic would then be, okay, tactic number one, we're going to engage stores all over West Africa and brand, every store in West Africa with Coca-Cola branding. Two, we're going to engage campus ambassadors in universities and make sure that our branding is in the middle of the campus where it is not, where it cannot be missed at all. Three, we're going to buy out, do sponsorship of the biggest youth program and shows in Africa. I hope you can see the difference. So your strategy is the overarching idea. that of what it is you want to achieve. Then the tactics are the actions and the channels that you would use to implement that strategy. A different strategy for Coca-Cola might be, okay, we want to achieve brand awareness. What do we want to do? We want to win the hearts of people. We want to create an emotional connection to the brand, right? So that can be our strategy. We want people to be emotionally connected to the brand, because when people are emotional, they make irrational purchase decisions. How do we create these emotional connections? We want to start having conversations that cut into the heart of what is important to people. So we launch a podcast. So we do a series of roadshows and events where people can come and open their hearts. And as they're opening their hearts, they're drinking a bottle of Coke. Or when, we sponsor people that are already, having conversations, bringing together young people, and we sponsor them, and Coke is in the middle of that, so that when they think about the things that matter to them, they think about Coca-Cola. So I hope that helps, but I'm going to dive deeper into that in the next course that I'm doing. Can you also send us communication strategy template? Yes, watch out for the course, but the course is not free, it's going to be paid, but don't worry. If you see my brand strategy course, I've made sure that it's as affordable as possible. I always like to put templates with my courses. So yes, there's going to be a course and there will be a template with that. How do you develop your persuasion skills? Honestly, I'm trying to think of how I've developed mine. So first of all, I read. The way I learn by reading, and I learn by practicing what I read. So, I'm trying to think, was there a book on persuasion that I read? I would have to think about it. I think that, yes, I remember now. I Googled, how to persuade people, how to influence people. There's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Very useful book. Because it teaches you how to connect with people on a level that is important to them, right? So that book was very important. I did a Google search, and then I started implementing the things that I learned from those books. Started with my family members, my mother, my brother, my friends, and then over time, started expanding that to different people. So that's what I would say you should do. You're welcome, Jacqueline. Okay. I'm tired of learning on my own. I found out that I've had to do this a lot. So honestly, Sarah, it really depends on the organization that you work with. And that's why we have the Comms Avenue community. And I always encourage people to leverage the community, because if you're working in an organization where you're the only comms person, you're the person that is doing comms, you're writing, you're doing social media, you're doing creative design, you're going to be teaching and learning for yourself. That was me in the early years of my career. For like 2 years, I was learning from myself within the organization. But like I said, you have to be responsible for your growth. You have to know, I don't know this thing and I need to know, where can I know it? And I pursue it. Look, guys, there is nothing in this life that I want to know that I will not find information. 2 years ago, when I wanted to pivot into policy communications, the first thing that I did, I went to go and do an internship with a policy think tank, just to even understand the industry. Then I started connecting with people on LinkedIn that had policy communication on their title or policy, whatever. Then I took it a step further. I started sending them messages. Like I always tell you people, shoot my shot. I'm in the middle of pivoting into this, and I'd just like to hear, to talk to you about the work that you do, to see how my skills as a communicator can interface with policy, About 2 or 3 people answered me. A lot of people didn't answer, but that's all I needed. I don't need the whole world to answer. I just need 1 or 2 people. And there was one conversation, it was so insightful on policy, the intersection with communications. And that's all you need, right? But it is up to you, Sarah. You can't, if you're really tired, well, there are people that have this information and willing to share. How are you connecting with them? Connecting with them on LinkedIn, connecting with them in the Comms Avenue community. I reach out to people though. I see there's no, I don't shy away from that. If there's something I need to learn, I'm going to find you and I'm going to stalk you. Okay, I'm not going to stalk you, I'm just joking, but I'm going to find that information and learn what I need to learn, whether it's from a senior, whether it is from my peer or whoever has that expertise. I mean, you should check my LinkedIn DM. You're going to be like, these people, all of these people, they didn't even reply. But it doesn't matter to me because one person said yes, and that's what I need, just one yes. Yes, it can be discouraging when you get no or people don't answer you, but I just know that one person is going to answer me. So Sarah, you have me here, you have the Comms Avenue community, you have your TMP court, you have access, just make use of it is what I would say. You know, people will not they actually implementing tactics. Let me give you a tip actually for those of you that want to go beyond implementing tactics. So in an organization, the people, you're probably not going to be in the rooms where like the high level strategy is going to be done. But you see, you can be so curious and ask questions and come up with ideas that you'll be invited into the room. It has happened to me so many times. I have been invited into meetings and rooms that were above my pay grade and my position because I showed an interest, because I'm like, you know, boss, I was thinking about this thing that you said in the last meeting about the fact that we want to diversify into, and I did some research and I noticed that X, Y, and Z company is doing this, but this is a strategic position that we may want to explore. So I was just thinking, is that something that we may want to consider? Yeah, let me tell you something, your boss is going to be like, this person is interested. You do that over time. There was one that I did and the boss was like, you know what are you doing? Come into this meeting. Don't say a word, but come into the meeting. And in that meeting, somebody then asked me for my contribution. It always, I don't even know why it always happens to me, but I was prepared. I had done research. I had explored possibilities. Of course, some of those possibilities were not feasible, but they saw that I had an interest. And that's how you begin to get into places where they call you into rooms where strategy is needed. So think about doing that in your organization, because you can't just wait. Like I always say, don't just wait to be handed things. Don't just wait for doors to open. Show that you are ready. Show that you're interested and you want to contribute. So that's just a tip that you may want to explore. Again, all of these things come with confidence. I always say, be confident. See, be confident about what you know. You may be in the early years of the career, but there are things that you do fantastically well. Own it and be confident about it. There are 2 things I'm confident about, or maybe 3 things. I'm confident about my writing skills. I'm confident about my ability to deliver strategy. And I'm also confident about my ability to learn. I'm sorry, I don't care what it is. I will learn it. I can learn it. You know, I remember my first, when I was, just before I went for NYSC, I had just returned to Nigeria. I don't think I documented this story in my book. I had just returned to Nigeria. For those who are not Nigerians, we have a year of compulsory youth service. And I was meant to start it in February. Now, this was December. And I went to go and interview at a HR consulting firm. They wrote management consulting on their website too. I thought they were like McKinsey type of people. Only to realize they were doing HR. But I was like, okay, let me go for it. And then during the interview, the man was like, well, you want to come here for only 2 months. In fact, it was going to be like 7 weeks. You know, what can you possibly add to this organization within this time? Remember, I studied law. I was fresh out of university. I know anything about HR. I've never worked in an organization before that. But I looked this man in the eye and I said to him, sir, I assure you that by the time I'm leaving this organization, you are going to beg me to stay. As the man looked at me, and I said it so bold, and I was very sure of it. Why? Because I knew that, see, there's nothing in this organization that they're doing that I cannot understand and learn and do. And truth, you know, I stayed there longer. I stayed there for about 4 months. I think I left that organization in March. No, I think in May. I stayed because I didn't go for the youth service of that February. By the time I was leaving, this same man was like, Adedoyin, you are going. Are you sure we shouldn't give you a full-time role? Why? Because I learned the thing that they were doing. I will ask the consultant questions. Oh, what do you need help with? So let me tell you more about this role so that you can see practically some of these things that I'm saying. So I was meant to be an intern, and maybe on the second week of the role. So in the first week, they put me in database work. Now, if you know me, I hate monotonous work with every fiber of my being. So they told me to be updating the database. And you know, HR, you know, people are applying. So I had to get people's names, their skills, and there was this database. That was what I was doing. But you see, in the middle of doing that, during break time, I would go to the senior colleague or the regular consultant. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm shortlisting for this role. Yeah. So how does the shortlisting process work? And the people would talk to you. I'm like, oh, so this is what happens. We do the call, we draft this, they do that. And I say, yeah, so, okay, so what do you now do during the interview? Okay. I will go to another consultant. Sister, what are you working on? Okay. Oh, okay. Do you want me to help you with it? Just help me sort through this series. Okay. How do you want me to do it? That was how I started doing other things, non-database. Remember, the work they gave me to do was database. The managing partner of this organization comes in one day. We need a proposal right now, immediately for, what was that service? Some verification service, I can't remember. Now, all of the consultants were busy, the senior consultant. So the senior consultant was like, oh, sir, we are working on some things that are on. He was like, not just looked, you, what's she doing there? I said, no, this is our intern that she cannot write it. Why is she here if she cannot write proposal? My friend, write proposal. Now, remember, I had been asking the consultant questions. In fact, they had been giving me their proposals. I had, on the computer that I had access to some of their proposals. So when I got bored of the database work, I would read through the proposals. I would see the structure, the format, and everything. So when the man said, oh, do it, you could see the fear on my senior consultant's face, like, hey, this girl is going to get herself and myself in trouble. So the man tried to coach me as much as just told me the things. I said, no problem. I just opened, one of the proposals, I started writing. Remember, guys, one thing I'm confident about is what? My writing skills. As long as I'm able to understand what it is that you want me to write, there's nothing. So I did it. I already knew the format. By the time I submitted, this man, maybe he only changed 20% of the things that I changed. Do you know what happened after that? They upgraded me from database management and gave it to somebody else. Then, one of the days, the consultants, they were talking about client meetings. I was like, I really like to experience what it is to go to a client to pitch. Like, okay, you will follow me for my next one. That's how I started following them for consultant meetings. Then one day, the senior consultant, he's complaining, he has a lot of work, but he's meant to be training because, HR, they also do training, and he can't work on the slides. I was like, I can do your slides for you. That, just tell me what you want me to put. I will design it. I will work on the content. That was how I started working on his slides. He will give me some money to work on the slides. From there, I started creating training programs. Guys, I can tell you the story on and on and on. By the time I was leaving that organization, I had mastered everything in that department. I had mastered it 4 months. The man didn't want me to go. Remember, this was someone that was not sure of the value I was able to bring. So that is how you need to be thinking outside the box in your organization. There is work that they will give you to do, but you must show that, yes, I'm capable of doing more and be able to demonstrate that. And as you are doing more, guys, please, your salary must also be increasing, right? So maybe that's another conversation, but let me scroll down. Okay, I think those are the questions. Please, if there are any more questions, there's something that I wanted to touch on that I called from the survey. So certifications and associations. So like I said before, think about it strategically, right? Certifications are good, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have it, right? So think about it in the terms of what knowledge do I need now? And then start saving up for some of these certifications. Because like I said, even for me, some of them, the prices are quite steep, right? So think about it and say, what knowledge do I need? Right now, honestly, in the early years of your career, your expertise is number one. Build your expertise so that even when you're now getting this certification, it's like a cherry. Because if you have certification and no expertise, it's really hard. So think about it like that in terms of your expertise and your association. Now, I want to touch on, because this is something that people ask a lot, how do I break into the industry? How do I gain experience? Nobody wants to give me an experience. Yeah, certification to increase your salary. So I'm a believer of you have to be creative about your opportunities, right? Now, if you're somebody that maybe you have all the certifications, like I know a number of people, they have masters, but they don't have the expertise yet, or in terms of practical experience, please guys, explore volunteering. Because when you have written press releases, nobody needs to know whether they paid you or they don't pay you. They just want to be able to know that you wrote a press release and you secured something, or you did this campaign and this was the outcome of this campaign. So find ways, right, that you can gain the experience that you need. I always advise, do a skill audit. So comms, I need to be able to demonstrate ABC. I don't have that expertise. Where can I get it? There's somebody in our community that she wrote to an agency because she realized that for where she wanted to go, she needed agency experience. She wrote almost like, maybe like, I think 10 pages. It was such a ridiculous amount, but she got an opportunity to work in one of the leading agencies in Nigeria because she went to pitch herself and say, guys, this, and then first of all, when you're going to go and do some of those things, don't go as, oh, please, I need this, I'm desperate. No, you have value. There's something that you know how to do. You've just not had an opportunity to do it. Remember that, please. So you can tell them that, look, this is what I can bring to your organization, and this is what I want to learn. You can do volunteering. There are events, there are things, conferences that happen every year. Pitch yourself to be part of their comms and media team. Because first of all, it gives you a networking opportunity. Then you're able to implement what you're able to learn. So that, for example, if it's Fashion Week, let's say you're in the lifestyle industry, if you were part of the comms team of Fashion Week, that already gives you something to put on your CV. So think creatively. I always say about getting your foot in the door. It is not always by applying for jobs, submitting your CVs. It's just being able to spot an opportunity and going for it. You can be at a conference, at an event, somebody will say, oh, I need somebody to manage my social media. I can do it. As long as you can do it, not the one that you will not be able to do it. And then from there, you really need to explore and please network. I really want to do a YouTube live or maybe a Zoom conversation on networking for communications professionals. Because I don't want to say a lot of it because I don't have data, but a good number of people are very introverted. And I used to be like that, and networking was so awkward to me. I don't like small talk. But you see, if you want to advance in your career, you need a good network. You really, really, really do. Like I used to tell people that my career so far, I can count the number of places I've had to apply or pitch for jobs. It usually comes from referral. Call Adedoyin, she would do it, right? Or people sending me things. So how do you build your network? Maybe that's a webinar I will do on practical tips. Your CV, your interviews. I wanted to talk about this, especially for those of you that you're still building your skills. Please be mindful of how you talk about yourself in interviews. Very, very important. How do you shape the narrative? I always use this example a lot because I think that it gives the perspective of narratives. There was someone that she had gotten fired from her former place of work, and it was difficult for her to get a new job. So at the time last year, I did a lot of one-on-one free coaching. And then she told me about it. And I said to her, how do you communicate this thing during the interview? She's like, well, I tell them honestly that I was fired because I did X, Y, Z. And I said, you need to change the narrative of this thing because you're communicating the negatives and we're not seeing the positives. So I now said, since the time this incident happened till now, what are the things that have happened in your life? And she said, oh, I reflected on the things that I did wrong. I, took courses, I improved on this. She now, started telling me. So I said, your next interview, acknowledge that this thing happened. However, state it that incident made you to reflect and see the areas where you were wrong. And then you took the following steps to improve those areas where you had weaknesses. And then talk about the results of what those steps did. Don't end it with, oh, I was fired because of this. No, end it with the positive. Guy, she got a job with a multinational, and I kid you not. When she told me when she got the job, I was like, brilliant. That is the power of narratives. You turn a story or, you're talking about yourself. If you don't communicate yourself properly during interviews, you're going to miss out on opportunities. If you're communicating yourself as, oh, I'm just starting out, I'm not very experienced, first of all, they're going to shortchange you in your salary expectation. They're not going to value you the way they should. I may be a newbie, but I know what I'm worth. I know that I will add value to your organization. Remember the example I gave? I was so confident. The man was like, who is this one? And you must be confident. work on your, I think I said it in the video, your professional value and your professional self-worth. Nobody is going to build that for you. No, there's no pity party. Or every professional, senior professional you see was once an amateur. So it's not the end of the world, but don't portray yourself as less than. No, you're not less than. You're growing in your journey, and you're growing in your expertise, and you communicate it as such and tell them that, yes, I am growing, but as I learn and as I grow, I will continue to add value to your organization that, you know, takes me even beyond, or will take your organization beyond where it is. It's not a lie. It's what you can do. Just thought to add that. I feel my job has been reduced to posting on social media. You need to ask for more things. You need to sit down, assess your role, think about what else you can be doing for the organization, and go to them with suggestions. Let us explore this. Can we go into that? You have to take responsibility for that. If not, because if you're only doing social media, posting on social media, doing content, that is just a fraction of comms. So sit down, evaluate your organization, do your research, and see new ideas you can bring up or you can push, and go to them and make the suggestion. And if they're not answering, and if you're somebody that you want to grow, maybe it's time to start looking for something else. But you need to start thinking of, and I think I wrote it in my book, even on the job, I come up with new ideas. Oh, let's try this. Oh, let's do this. Because I'm always thinking, remember, strategic communications is thinking, how can the work that I do help this organization to improve? If all you're doing is posting content on social media, I don't see how that's helping that organization to move forward constantly. So if the organization still has an objective to achieve, then there are ideas that you can bring up that will help you to, or that will help you to walk in line with that for the organization. And you go to them with those suggestions. They will tell you to do it. They may not give you the budget to do it. That's another thing. But you must be able to show that, look, there's more we can be doing, and I'm willing to do more. You see, if you want to intern at Fashion Week, I love it. Thank you, Sarah. What should you quote as an average salary? So this question, so we had a Secure the Bag series conversation in the Comms Avenue last year, and we had I think we had about 4 professionals from different industries. I cannot give you a base amount, and this is the reason why. Industries differ. What the finance industry can pay is different from which industry can I use? Maybe a government industry, or it's government and industry, or private or public sector rather. So what I would do is to tell you what you should be thinking about when you're looking at your salary expectations. One, industry. If this is a tech company or tech industry, is this a company that they are just literally starting up, or somebody that they've raised, and I know they have series A, series whatever, series What a Flutter Wave can pay will be different from what an early stage startup can pay, right? Secondly, this, and I know we don't talk about salary a lot professionally, and I don't know why, right? I find people and I ask them, give me a range. I don't even want to know what you are in. Give me a range in terms of your salary. And then I look at myself, what do I like to earn? So those 3 things I always consider. And then I give a range. So, but you need information. You need to know, what is this organization capable of paying? Because right now, some organizations, they're trying to shortchange professionals, and it's so annoying. What is this organization capable of paying? This industry, what are professionals at this level trying to pay? I'm hoping that, and maybe this is something that we can explore, that we can do, you know how Glassdoor has like an industry benchmark? It would be nice if we can do something like that from across Africa. A tall order, because people don't really talk about their salaries, but ask around. Me, I ask. If you like, don't tell me I look for somebody else. I always ask so that I have an idea of the benchmark. Now, because I've grown in my career, I ask myself, are they doing? Because I know how much time it takes me to do a project. You know, when I bill clients, I have a daily rate, or depending on the brief, I have a per hour rate. Because I have that in mind, I know the least minimum amount I'm going to charge for doing certain things, right? So that has come with expertise, but you need information. You definitely need information. I can't even give you a value now, because it might be under what the organization may be willing to pay, or it might be over. So those are the things. Think about the industry, think about that organization, and think about talking to people, maybe not in that company, but that have that role, can you just give me your salary band, because they may not tell you directly what their salary is. But if they give you a band, then you can say, okay, maybe I should shoot for the middle or shoot for the higher range. But right now, there isn't a clear answer. I pray sometime in the future that answer will be clearer. Hope that helps you, Jennifer. Okay. I think I've dealt with this. Sorry, I'm just going through the questions that I got from the survey. Okay, well, there was a question about dealing with biases where you're working in an organization where they don't value the work that you're doing. Is it not communications? Is it not just to write? Is it not just to post on social media? I've heard that thing so many times. It's very irritating and it's very annoying. However, I do not take it personally. I've taken the stance of educating people. No, it is not just to write. And I break down what it actually involves. That it is not just writing. There's research involved. There is understanding what the objective is, and there's communicating with clarity. So I don't, except if the person or organization is very condescending. And can I say this, during your interviews, it's also a time for you to be asking questions to understand the culture of the organization, so that you don't wind up working in a place where comms is relegated to press release writing, where there's so much more that you can do. So you know the questions you're going to ask. During interviews, the few interviews I've done, I ask them questions. They too, you'll be on the hot seat, because it's a privilege to have me in the organization. And of course, it has to be a best fit for me, right? So I ask them the right questions. And yeah, I think if I'm going to wrap up, if there isn't any more questions, if I'm going to wrap up, I would say, please focus on building your expertise, because you see, when you get the foundation right and your expertise right, the higher you go, first of all, the more money you're able to earn. But secondly, the more respected you will be as a professional, that because you know your stuff. There's so many people that don't know their stuff. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. So please know your stuff, build your expertise. At the beginning of my career, money was not the biggest thing for me. I just wanted to gain the experience, because I wanted to go deep roots, because I thought about it. I wanted to be in a position that in 5-6 years, I'll be able to command X amount of money. And for me, if I use a ballpark figure, thinking $10,000. But for me to be able to do that, I must know my stuff and must be able to deliver results. So I did things, sometimes I did a lot of free projects. I stretched myself a lot. There was a time, I was the graphic designer. I was the everything. It's not ideal, please. Can you still hear me? Okay. It's not ideal, but I remember I did all of this thing with my future goal in mind, right? So it was a temporary thing. I grew my expertise, because you see, as you go higher in your career, and this is something that I should touch on, your ability to collaborate and work with people. So you're going to be working with graphic designers, website designers, vendors. How do you carry all of these people along? How do you work with these people? Emotional intelligence, being able to work with people, different people. If you work with graphic designers, that sometimes I used to wonder, what are people smoking? You have an urgent deliverable and you are calling and not picking the phone, and your client is on your case, and you're like, oh my God. I mean, I've experienced all sorts. How do you deal with people? How do you make sure that those third parties deliver? And, when they're meant to deliver to the quality that they're supposed to, you're telling your clients, oh, the graphic designer went AWOL. It's none of their business. They're giving you the work, right? So please deepen your expertise. Deepen your expertise and allow yourself to learn and make mistakes. It's easier now than later on in your career. So you might as well, go all out, but deepen your expertise, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to leverage a community like the Comms Avenue. See, if I was a member of the Comms Avenue, I will be having weekly virtual dates with people in that community. Hey, hi, can we just have like a 20-minute chat? I just want to learn more about the work that you're doing. That's how you make friendships. And then you guys chat for 20 minutes, you get to see, because as people, you start talking to people, you realize you have things in common. the things in common might be, oh, this person likes reading, or this person likes taking walks in a park, or this person has a certain quirk that you have, and you begin to connect with that person. So if I were a member, I would be, if at every country where somebody comes and this, recently now, there's somebody now that introduced herself in the community and she has lived in 15 countries. Oh my God, I will reach out to her and say, hi, I find it so fascinating that, you've lived in 15 countries. Anytime you have some free time, I really like to ask you about the experiences. I mean, the culture shock and everything. Trust me, she's going to want to tell you that story. Now, you may not have a desire to live in 15 countries, but the truth is that you've created a bonding bridge, and that's what you need. And then down the line, sometime, you might have expertise in something you need, but because you've created that connection, it's not awkward to reach out to her and say, oh, hi, I'm doing something. I remember you spoke about this in the community. Can I just talk you through my ideas for 5 minutes and stuff? And I always use 10, 15 minutes. And those conversations sometimes can be 2 hours. If you tell somebody I want 1 hour of your time, they're like, please, you're 1 hour. But just say 15 minutes. And usually you're going to talk more than 15 minutes. So these are ideas, form professional connections. It doesn't have to start with work. It can just start with, I want to know more about what you do. I want to know more about, if you find somebody. So for example, there's diversity, equity, and include DE&I communications, which I find very interesting. It's not something that is my area of interest, but the people that write about it on LinkedIn, now I can reach out to one of them. I'm like, I find it's very interesting. I'd like to know more about it. And we schedule a time to speak, and you never know what can come from it. But please make professional connections within the industry, reach out to people, build friends. You can't do it alone. It gets tough, it gets lonely, it gets tiring. So your professional tribe and community would really, really help you. I hope that this, you had a conversation with, Jennifer, that's great. I hope this conversation has been helpful and I've been able to answer your questions. If you have any follow-up questions after this, you can please shoot me an email and I'll be happy to answer the questions. And I'm going to also share the replay of this. But yeah, like I would like to just encourage you, don't look at yourself as, oh, what do you mean, what of LinkedIn? To reach out to me on LinkedIn. I mean, you can send me a message on LinkedIn, just don't expect an immediate answer, right? So yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's perfectly okay with your questions. That's fine. I around this time at night that I try to read through my LinkedIn. So email, LinkedIn, wherever it is that you want to connect with me. But to wrap up, oh yes, I wanted to share resources. So let me share my email address right now. So if you want to send me an email, then the resource for those of you that may not have already downloaded it, or Comms Career Guide, that's it. And if you visit this website, Comms Avenue, there is a resource there that you will see. It's called Communication Competencies by Shola Abuli. Very useful resource. Please just look out for it when you go to the blog. Hey, Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining. I'm glad that it was useful. And there's also something that I started doing, because you see, I found that organizations, comms teams, because they don't want to seem like they don't know what they're doing, they can't reach out for help. I can come into your organization to train. You've watched my videos and stuff. I love training. So it can be something as simple as have a brainstorming session with your comms team. Let us even unpack the work that you're doing within that organization. And that's perfectly arranged. I can arrange that. Obviously, it's paid, though, it's not free. But I will be doing more videos, paid and unpaid. The unpaid ones are on LinkedIn. And I have a brand strategy course, which is on Seller, that breaks down the process of doing a brand refresh or building a brand strategy from scratch. If you want to access that resource, let me see if I can actually find it. But the next one that I would do, I really want to do one on communication strategy, where I break down everything. This is why I didn't want to change tabs. My laptop is hanging. Let's see if it will work. Okay, it's working now. See? I want to put the brand strategy course if you're interested in that. And there's also a template. I love to give templates because honestly, templates have really helped my life. But then I realized that the templates that you find online, you can't really use them exactly for the campaigns that we do in Africa. So I always try to customize my template to be relevant here. So that's the brand strategy course. So the next one will be on communication strategy. So if there are things that you want to learn, you want to know, some of them I'm able to do on the YouTube free of charge. The ones that will go on Seller, they will be at a very minimal price so that at least you have access to that. But to wrap up, in essence, please don't look down on your ability. Don't look down on your journey. Yes, there may be a lot of things that you don't yet know, but you have the ability to learn and you can learn it. And stay consistent, stay committed to learning, because as you do that, the more you would be, you would be consistent, the more you will see your growth, and the more mastery. Mastery comes with consistency and doing things. So thank you very much, everyone, and looking forward to engaging with you on LinkedIn, via my email. If you want to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is ministry mostly, but yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram, or wherever you want to connect, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much for your time. You're very welcome. You're welcome, Tamilore. Yeah. Hey, Tamilore, I just remembered I owe you something. Let's talk outside this webinar. I've so forgotten. Oh my goodness, forgive me. I just literally remembered when I saw your name. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm glad that this was useful. Thank you for connecting from Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya. I'm not sure we had other people from other locations. Yeah. All right, everyone. Have a good evening.